islands surrounding Delos in the middle of the Aegean Sea are called Cyclades. The name originates from the Greek word circle. Delos in those times was the sacred place of the Greeks, and a long time before Christ, the still influential Cycladic culture was developed on the island group, which besides the architectural and cultural stream also means a certain style and atmosphere. The millions of tourists who visit any of the islands look for this attitude. Of the 40 islands, 29 are inhabited, but the touristic significance of these also differs. The most beautiful and the most popular is Santorini, followed closely by Mykonos, which for a long time was only mentioned as a transit stop among tourists who came to see the excavations in Delos. Since the 50s and 60s, this barren island, only 84 square kilometers in size, has become a high-priority holiday resort of Greek tourism. What's the secret of its popularity? Undoubtedly, everything can be found here which is on the other islands too. Characteristic density of the whitewashed Cycladic houses which follow the line of narrow, winding cobblestone alleys based on some logic which is difficult to comprehend. The Venetian blinds and the salient balconies protecting from the scorching sun are painted in different colors. The stairs of the whitewashed houses are packed full of clay pots with climbing geraniums. The magnificent, colorful flowers of bougainvillea, hibiscus, oleander, and rambler rose bushes climb up the walls. The tables of simple taverns in the shade of grape arbors or reed blinds are covered with blue and white checked tablecloths. The blades of cylinder-shaped windmills pull their weight against the wind blowing from the sea. Everywhere we chance upon blue-domed Greek Orthodox churches. Colorful fishing boats and snow-white luxury yachts float on the inimitably blue waters of the port. Intimate little shops hide at the foot of buildings, where we can choose from typical Greek souvenirs. Bells peal from the towers of churches. Tables are packed tightly on the squares. Next to them, spit-roasted meat, pita bread, fresh salad, local wines, and iced coffee are available. The popular pelicans, the totem animals of the island, walk in the streets and in the port of the little town. They've been photographed so many times that they could probably even change the film in a camera. Yes, Mykonos has everything that the other islands do. However, it would hardly raise it above the rest as a tourist destination. The fortune, or misfortune, of Mykonos is that its clientele is completely different from those of the other islands. Mykonos has always accepted differences, and that's why it's become different. It's made the island the favorite European holiday resort of Hollywood celebrities, rock stars, and the aristocracy. Cosmopolitan, modern, alternative, and mundane are the words that can be best used to describe the island. And indeed, from almost every country come here those people who are not always welcome on the other islands. In the morning, when the kings of the night are still asleep, the island doesn't differ much from the other islands. The locals try to make it through the peak season and live their everyday lives. In the Fisher's Harbor, we can see characteristic boatsmen in captain's caps decorated with anchor and in striped t-shirts, as if they just stepped out of the pages of an extreme adventure novel. The reason they seem so interesting is that they're real, just like the grim fishermen, elderly women bargaining on the market, or the elderly Greek gentlemen arguing on the terrace of the tavern. The picture of the street isn't complete without them. This scene is heightened by the distant bouzouki music, the horns of ships, the noise of exhaust pipes, and the Tower of Babel-like talk in the town. The capital, Hora, spreads in a bay framed by small hills. The port, its main square, the promenade, and pedestrian zones so distinctive at other places are melded here into each other because of lack of space. According to the legend of the square, named after the 3 wells, girls can only marry if they've drunk from the water of all 3 wells. The scenic district of Alefkandra was built by captains of ships and merchants who became wealthy. During the day, tourists wander along the houses of the town. Determined intellectuals, hiding behind straw hats and sunglasses, depart to the harbor to see the excavations of Delos, equipped with books, maps, and cameras. However, we can only see the true face of Mykonos after sunset, when backpacking mavericks, nudists, homosexuals, bohemian artists, bored millionaires, young people wanting to party and make friends, world stars, playboys, and playgirls appear in the streets. The bars open, candles are lit on the tables of restaurants, and the discos start to play music. Shopkeepers prey on customers, just like the artists selling their paintings from their hands. Life starts up, traffic stops. In the narrow alleys of the old town without sidewalks, the taxis and rented cars move along inch by inch. The happy crowd of people is flowing. It's difficult to park here. It's possible to get around by only nothing else but scooters. Of course, nobody is disappointed by this. The shops sometimes sell at a high price the newest French and Italian fashion models, and the restaurants aren't cheap either. But can we imagine anything better than to sit on the beach with a bottle of Retsina or Metaxa in our hands and listen to the rumble of the waves as the evening passes and the moon is sinking and the light strip of dawn appears on the horizon? Another night is past, but we can sleep under the umbrellas of the beach tomorrow. In the harbor, such large ships line up that the little white houses climbing up the mountain are simply dwarfed by them. We can quickly and comfortably travel from island to island by ferry, pleasure ship, and hydrofoil. However, before organizing a cruise to more islands, it's worth checking the timetables carefully. Don't forget, to travel on foot is always cheaper than to travel by ferry. However, in this case, we need to hire some kind of vehicle on the next island, a car or a scooter. Indeed, the island is not very big, but those who believe that besides the capital city there's no other place to go are mistaken. In the past decades, holiday resorts have been developed at every possible place. Lovers of the sea, sun, diving, sailing, and water sports can choose according to their personal taste among Megaliamnos, Platisialos, or Ornos. These holiday resorts close to the capital are quite busy in peak season. To the south of these, we can find nudist beaches in little bays surrounded by steep cliffs. Paradise, Super Paradise, and Alia beaches are famous. They're people who don't visit Mykonos for the nightlife in Hora, but for the tranquility of the quiet bays. On the hillside, luxury villas with swimming pools are lined up. Several of them may be rented out long-term. Many people do not need hotels or villas. They simply anchor their ships in one of the harbors or bays, and if they would like to feel dry land under their feet, they can reach the coast in just a few minutes. Pigeon houses, windmills, and nice little restaurants with patios await the travelers. Those who live on dry land and long for the sea can go on a boat or ship cruise for a cheap price. They can even rent a boat. The ships can take us not only to the island, but it's also possible to cruise around the islands to discover hidden little bays suitable for bathing that are not accessible from the direction of the land. Most churches have been erected by superstitious fishermen or seamen in gratitude for being able to escape the wrath of the sea. That's why many churches stand in the harbor or on the coast. Ios Ioannis is also a beautifully situated holiday resort, with a growing number of luxury hotels and with all kinds of entertainment and sports facilities. Campsites are relatively rare here, but all kinds of accommodation can be found, from self-catering bungalows to 4-star, all-inclusive luxury hotels. Almost all rooms face the sea. The hotels have their own beaches, and freshwater swimming pools and jacuzzis are also common. The northern coast is barren and desolate. The wind that blows perpetually on the island rises here to an unpleasant strength. To the north of Hora, we can find only one good beach, the popular Ios Stefanos beach. On the southern coast, which has more favorable conditions, are the beaches of Kalolivadi, Aya Ana, and Kalafatis. The most beautiful village of the island is Anomera, which is located far from the main tourist routes, so it's retained its untouched quality. Its main square is surrounded by cafes and taverns built in different styles. The only thing they have in common is that at dinner time, they're all overflowing with people. The restaurants serve mostly a traditionally Greek cuisine, but those who desire it may get international food as well. It's a suitable place for getting to know the gastronomy of Greece. We should try the roasted lamb, the beef braised with onions, called stifado, or the famous moussaka. The greatest attraction of the town, Panagia Torliani, a 15th century monastery, stands on the main square. The nicely carved marble belfry can be seen from a distance. The icon collection of the church attracts many visitors, but the life of the village is at least as interesting. Let's visit the market of Anomera, or sit on the terrace of one of the taverns, from where we can have a glimpse into the everyday life of the locals. We can go on nice excursions to the inland. From the top of higher hills, we can take delight in mild, gently sloping hills, glittering bays, and long-stretching beaches. According to ancient chroniclers, the islands of Hellas were green with rich vegetation. Unfortunately, today it's only true for a few of the islands. Regarding the Croatian coast, we may know that the good quality larch trees were cut down, and Venice has been standing to this day on the poles made of them. Then the erosion wore down the mountains which were no longer protected by the trees, and probably the same thing happened with the Greek islands during the Venetian occupation. The islands, frightened of the jealous Hera, did not accept the pregnant Leto. The infertile, barren Delos had nothing to lose, so the grandchild of the giants, hanging on to the only palm tree of the island, gave birth to the divine son of Zeus, Apollo. Leto brought prosperity to the island, where the followers of Apollo brought treasures from all corners of the world in gratitude. So much for mythology. In fact, Delos became a significant religious center in the 7th century. At that time, it was under the protection of the nearby Naxos. The continuously expanding Athens formed the Delian League after defeating the Persians in 478 BC. The treasures coming from taxes, which had previously been kept on Delos, were carried to Parthenon by Athens. At the same time, a complete cleansing of the island was ordered, even the graves were opened and remains of the dead were removed. Birth and death were banned. Pregnant women and dying Delians were transported to another island. The long-forgotten event, the Delian Games, were revived when people used to sing and dance, organized performances, sports programs, and feasts in honor of Apollo. The true golden age of the island began with the decline of Athens. That is when it became the busiest port and merchant town of the Aegean Sea. Then King Mithridates, who was at war with both Rome and Athens, devastated the island of Delos. Its more than 20,000 inhabitants were slaughtered, its treasures robbed. Rome tried in vain to revive the island. The ruinous area was not even mentioned until the 1870s. That is when French archaeologists started excavation works, which are still in progress. Tourist ships depart to the island in the morning, so until the trip back, visitors have 4 hours to look around. This amount of time is sufficient for the average tourist. If somebody wants to study Delos more thoroughly, they have no choice but to make the half-hour trip from Mykonos several times, since on Delos there are no possibilities for accommodation. In all, there's only one little shop on the island where, besides souvenirs, we can get coffee and mineral water. The museum exhibits the best artifacts from the 3,000 years of history of the island. Brass figures of Mycenae, ivory carvings, statues from Naxos, Hellenic reliefs, Roman sculptures, and mosaics are reminiscent of ages long past. The admission fee of the museum is included in the entrance fee to the area of the ruins. Ships still call at port at the old sacred harbor. This is where pilgrims departed to the Temple of Apollo on a 13-meter wide road framed with pillars. This route of procession can still be seen, its place marked by fallen pillars. To the south, we can find the ruins of the marketplace, Agora. At the entrance of the shrine district stands the monumental marble statue of Apollo. Its leg is in the British Museum in London today. The local museum only possesses a fragment of it. Theseus gave thanks in the Keraton shrine after his victory over the Minotaur on his trip back from Crete. The Saint Lake, which unfortunately has dried out, could have been a part of the town with a nice atmosphere. The fragmented archaic lion statues have become a symbol of the island. 5 lions out of the 9 erected by Naxians remained in Delos, 1 is in Venice, and 3 are missing. The Poseidon portico, the sanctuary of Leto, and the stadium once stood next to the lake. The 113-meter-high Kintos Mountain, rather a hill, was also an important cult place. Later, the theatrical quarter was created here. Today, the Greek theater and some partly reconstructed residential houses can be visited here. The one-storied residences were built around a marble-pillared, arched inner courtyard. The rooms, the salon, kitchen, and dining room opened from the ambulatory, while the bedrooms were upstairs. The walls were decorated with frescoes, the floors with mosaics. The mosaics of the House of the Dolphins, the House of the Three-Forked Spear, and the House of Masks are particularly beautiful. From the top of the hill, we can look over the entire ruinous area. Naxos, wealthy and significant in ancient times, can't compete with Mykonos or Santorini nowadays. The infrastructure of the biggest 440 square kilometer island of the Cyclades is being established now. As the first step, an airport has been built. Its harbor has a regular daily connection with Santorini, Mykonos, Paros, and Ios. The living of the less than 20,000 residents of Naxos is secured by the three traditional industries, namely marble mining, agriculture, and fishing. Tourism is only fourth on the list. The capital cities of the Greek islands traditionally have two names. One of them is the same as the name of the island, and the other is Hora. The center of the capital of Naxos is the harbor with its extreme traffic. Little bays separated by moles line the fishing harbor, the yacht harbor, and the relatively small cargo harbor. Passenger ships and ferries need the most space. The latter are often 9 to 10-storied monsters transporting hundreds of vehicles and thousands of people between the Greek islands every day. The larger islands have a frequent connection with the harbors of Piraeus and Athens. The elements guaranteeing the future of the island are the windless, long sandy coasts where dozens of beaches are developed, suitable for sunbathing, swimming, and water sports. Near the capital city, Ios Prokopios and Aya Anna are the most well-known. Further away, Mikrivilla, Kastraki, and Pyrgaki have similar qualities. Almost on every beach we can find a shady tavern. We don't need to bring equipment. We can rent deck chairs and beach umbrellas everywhere, together with paddle boat, boat, or surfboard. Other things needed for sunbathing, suntan lotion, or a towel can be bought in the small local shops. Next to the beaches, we often find little ports. On Naxos, sponge fishing is a traditional occupation. We can get real sea sponges and nice shells in these ports at the best prices. If we face the scenic little town situated like an amphitheater, to the left we can see the Palatia Peninsula, on which a famous marble gate is located. To the right is the arched, quaint main square, the Platia. The continuation of the main square is the promenade running along the coastline, above which rise the Venetian castle and the romantic old town built around it. The little Palatia island was connected to the harbor of the capital by an artificial bank in the Middle Ages. Unfortunately, the windmills that once stood here were demolished, but the 15th century church of the Johannites still stands. The emblematic Gate of Naxos was erected on the hill of Palatia. The monumental marble gate, the Portara, is the remains of an unfinished Apollo temple from 26 centuries ago. Theseus, the prince of Athens, defeated the Minotaur with the help of King Minos' daughter, Ariadne. We can all remember the story of Daedalus and Icarus, the labyrinth and the thread of Ariadne. But the story didn't end here. The happy ending was even delayed. Theseus ran off with Ariadne, to whom he promised marriage, and he left for Athens. On the way, he called at port at Delos, then at Naxos. Here he left the princess faithlessly and ungratefully. However, Dionysus, god of wine and festivity, was passing by, and he was taken with the girl. The little island of Palatia was a scene of their marriage, where the gate stands now. This is the explanation of the cult of Dionysus on the island, which everyone can experience if they happen to come here in the first week of August. At this time, there's a festival on the island, in the harbor, on the main square, and on the promenade. Locals and tourists alike celebrate with music, dance, literary evenings, torchlight processions, open markets, and fireworks. The highlight of the celebration is the food and good Greek wine handed out free of charge. This tradition probably would be approved of by Dionysus himself. The history of the island is maybe even more colorful than that of the neighboring islands. The faithful ally of Athens gained honor in the sea battle of Salamis. After the decline of Athens, first Rome, then the Byzantine Empire gained possession of it, and later, between the 13th and 16th centuries, it was under Venetian authority. Crete was the detached garrison of Venice in the region. The smaller islands were handed over to Italian adventurers who founded dynasties and ruled here as oligarchs. Marco Sanudo established a duchy of the islands. Since they had to be afraid of attacks of the pirates from Genoa and elsewhere, the duchy fortified the islands. This is when the Venetian-style castle, the Castro, was built on the island, together with the city wall and several lookout towers. Naxos enjoyed independence to a certain extent under Turkish rule. In the 18th century, the French king sent a Catholic order to the island. Later, Nikos Kazantzakis, the renowned Greek writer of Crete, studied in their school. The most well-known novel of the atheist author is Zorba the Greek, and the film made of it was also a huge success. From 1770, Naxos was ruled by Russians for 4 years, and it became part of the unified Greece in 1830. Most monuments of the island are reminiscent of Venetian times. From the main square or from the promenade on the coast, we can walk up to the Castro on winding upward alleys. This scenic part of town, divided by stairs and arches, is Burgos, inhabited chiefly by Orthodox people. Of the 7 towers of the citadel, only one has remained. The coat of arms, carved from stone, can be seen above the gates. At the bottom of the gates, there are the Venetian measures that were once used as standards. Behind the castle walls stands the palace of the Duke. One of its wings is home to the descendants of the family. The other wing is an archaeological museum. Besides the rich collection of relics from antique culture, a local historical exhibition can also be seen here. The 13th century Catholic cathedral is reminiscent of the Venetian aristocracy, many generations of which were buried here. The old town, built on a hill with its tranquility and characteristic houses and historical atmosphere, offers opportunities for unforgettable walks. And of course, those who wander around the Greek islands with a camera around their necks should not miss this either. Ayana is popular because of its windless, sandy bays and its relative closeness to the capital city. This is where we find the most rooms for rent. Besides, the most famous restaurant of Naxos is located here, which is mostly known for its fresh fish and seafood dishes. Corfu is said to be the greenest Greek island, which is true. But Naxos and Paros also take pride in strikingly rich vegetation, more so than the Dedokanis, the Sporades, or other islands of the Cyclades. This is why on these 2 islands, even today, agriculture is of great significance. Moreover, the cultivated lands, vineyards, and fruit orchards, and the hillsides overgrown with shrubs and evergreens are also pleasant to the eye. Donkeys are only used for porterage. Goats and sheep are more universal, and they're equally as good as lawnmowers as for a main course in a traditional Greek lunch or dinner. On the menu, we can find homegrown vegetables and fruit and pleasant local wines. Another specialty of Naxos is kitron, a kind of liqueur with lemon. In the beautiful landscape, a winding steep serpentine leads up to the highest mountain of the island, the 1,000-meter-high Zeus Mountain. On its side, 3 little villages deserve our attention. The characteristic little mountain village of Philoti, Apiratos, which is accessible through it, and the old mine port, Moutsouna. Filoti looks white on the side of Zeus Mountain. From the main square of the intimate little village, planted with sycamores, the road leads up to the highest lying village of the island, Apiratos, which is worth visiting for its archaeological museum. This is where the ancient findings of the cave of Za were exhibited. The residents of the two villages are proud of their Cretan origins. This seems to be proven by the dialect that is spoken by them. However, they don't know when and how they settled here. The tourist who wants to hire a car to get from one island of the Cyclades to the other may encounter many surprises. The bad news is the relatively high price of the ferry tickets. The pleasant surprise is the unexpected punctuality of the lines and the general luxury and comfort that the ferry boats offer. From the cargo hold, we're taken to the passenger level by escalator, where elegantly furnished cinema, snack bars, and lounges await the passengers. On the upper levels of the 9-storied ship, the cabins of those who travel for several days can be found. For shorter trips, there are smaller ferries, of course, which don't have cabins, and they only have 2 or 3 stories altogether. The island of Paros lies in the intersection of the ship routes of the Cyclades, only 8 kilometers from Naxos. On the 200 square kilometer island, there are no high mountains, but it has gently sloping hills that are as green as those of its neighbor. In vegetables, fruit, and grapes, it's as rich as Naxos, but its fiery white and velvety rosé wines are even better known. From the heights, we can see the Aegean Sea very well. On the blue water, shadows of clouds and snow-white yachts are floating. The pleasant tranquility, the clean air, and the scent of flowers provide an idyllic atmosphere. Due to its natural beauties, its well-maintained original image, and its quality of being relatively untouched, the island is an ideal place to relax. The inhabitants of the island are not yet apathetic about the service of the tourists, but are nice and friendly. The springs of the island abounding in water create romantic little islands, ornate with flowering shrubs in the valleys and on the sides of the hills. Its sandy coasts and protected bays are suitable for bathing, and its windy coasts for kiting or surfing. In 1993, a windsurfing world championship was held here. The wind, blowing on all islands of the Cyclades, only rises to unpleasant strength on Mykonos. In other places, it only eases the heat and fills the sails. For those who are only beginners at windsurfing, there are courses. The more advanced are given the opportunity to practice. Nasa is the most beautiful settlement of the idyllic island. The dual bay, the little Venetian fortress standing in the water, The whitewashed houses, arched gateways, swinging fishing boats between two houses with patios, the terraces of taverns and colorful flowers turn the fishing village into an unforgettable sight. 100 boats decorated with flaming torches commemorate here a victorious sea battle of the 16th century every August. The blue, white, or yellow fishing boats swinging in the bay bear the names of saints. In the mole, orange fishing nets are drying in the sun. The waves rock the boats. Greek flags flutter in the wind, and on the coast, palm trees are swaying to and fro. The numerous shellfish of the sea enrich the selection a vendor has to offer. Clams, sea snails, seahorses, corals, thorny fish, shark's tooth, starfish. In the middle of the Aegean Sea, closed by the Greek mainland and the coasts of Turkey, the islands of the Cyclades rise. These played a significant role in the history of civilization, not only in antiquity, but even in prehistoric times. The glory of this world is, however, passing, and the economy of the island declined by the end of the 19th century. The entailing immigration wave led to slow depopulation. Thousands of Greeks tried their fortune in America and several other countries. The very few work possibilities offered a poor standard of living for those who stayed at home. During the recovery between the two world wars, in the happy, peaceful years, citizens of Western Europe started to look for new holiday destinations here. Besides the Alps, the Italian cities, and the French Riviera, they wanted to discover new holiday resorts. Hellas came into fashion again. It became fashionable to reread sagas of Greek mythology. Queen Sissi had a castle built in Corfu, and the bourgeoisie and aristocracy discovered Rhodes, Santorini, and Delos for themselves. World War II, however, intervened. But booming tourism in the 1960s and 70s drove a lot of immigrant Greeks back to their home. The development of tourism revived the economy. In 1 or 2 decades, modern harbors and airports were built. Road networks and communication systems were improved, and holiday centers and beaches emerged from nothing. The development, however, took its toll. The primitive charm coming from the remoteness of the islands is vanishing nowadays. But fortunately, most of the islands still have that inimitable atmosphere, kindness, and untouched quality for which millions of tourists have come here. The harbor of Nasa is a good example, where on the outside not much hints of the 21st century. However, in a hidden place, we can even find an internet cafe. Kolumbitris, this especially unique beach, can be approached by car or motorboat from Nasa. Due to the fancy of nature, such round and wrinkled stones were formed that we would expect maybe only on the Seychelles. The varied rock formations embrace the silky, sandy bays. It's a wonderful place for those who wish to enjoy the pleasures of summer, sunshine, and sea, far away from the world. Kolumbitris is one of the hidden peculiarities for which it's worth spending a vacation on the Greek islands. Those who would like to try cruising on the sea may try the yacht charter, which is hiring power or sailing boats with or without staff. The history of Paros evolved similarly to that of Naxos. In the 3rd millennia BC, it was the center of Cycladic culture. Later, it was under the influence of Minoan Crete. In the Greek-Persian War, it fought on the side of the Persians, so Themistocles personally started a military expedition against it in revenge, which resulted in his own death. Paros later joined the side of Athens. In Byzantine times, it became almost totally depopulated as the result of pirate attacks. It was saved from this by Venice and the duchies. From this time originates the Venetian castle of the capital, the city wall and the towers, and the fortress of Nasa. In 1821, they started a war of independence against the Turkish, who came in place of the Venetians, and 10 years later, they joined the Greeks. Paros gave the father of iambic poetry, the poet Archilochus, to the Greek nation. Not only local statues and buildings are made of the snow-white marble mined on the island, it provided the material for the Venus de Milo, and even the Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem was built of this. Then the long-closed mine was reopened again to bring marble from here to the gravestone of Napoleon. Or, more accurately, from here also, because red porphyry of Karelia and green granite were also used for the grave at the Church of the Invalides in Paris. A church, Panagia Hekatontapiliani, built partly of marble, also stands in the capital city, the legend of which is commemorated by a relief on the wall of the building. According to legend, the best student of the builder of Hagia Sophia in Istanbul created such a masterpiece in this temple that his envious master wanted to force him down off the roof. But Ignatius dragged him down, and both of them died on the spot. According to another story, the word Hekatontapiliani means 100 gates, but only 99 are known. And when the 100th is discovered, Constantinople shall be Greek again. Besides this church, several others can be found in the capital city. There's also a ruinous citadel, a Venetian fortress built by using the remains of an antique sanctuary, a Paleo-Christian basilica, an archaeological museum, a monastery, and a spa from the 4th century. However surprising, it's not these for which the capital city of Paros is worth visiting. It's the magnificent, intimate pedestrian zone that will leave a mark in the heart of tourists who visit the place. Of course, those who are interested may see the archaeological museum or the interior courtyard of the Greek Orthodox churches, which have a unique atmosphere. The buildings standing among flowering shrubs offer great subjects for photographs. The mountainsides of the 195 square kilometer Tinos are dominated by vineyards, the valleys by olive woods. It's a quiet, tranquil, but lively island which is overrun by noisy milling crowds only 2 times a year. Tinos is famous for its wonder-working icon, which was found in 1822 during the Greek War of Independence. Every year on the 25th of March and the 15th of August, masses of tourists stream to the harbor, the capital city, and the famous church. It so happened that in 1940, during the celebration, a Greek cruiser Ellie, which was at anchor in the harbor, was torpedoed by an Italian submarine. Almost the entire staff of the ship fell victim to the attack. The monument in the harbor pays homage to them, and in the memorial chapel of the famous church, we can also pay our respects. Tinos was famous for the sanctuaries of Poseidon and Amphitrite in antiquity. Poseidon was considered a kind of patron saint who saved sailors who were in danger of the stormy sea. The island was ruled from antiquity to the 1200s by Athens, Rome, and Byzantium. Then the authority of the Venetians came, that lasted half a millennia, in the course of which half of the population was converted from Greek Orthodox to the Catholic faith. Even the Turkish could not change this, who managed to capture the St. Helen Castle of the Venetians above Samburgo in the 14th attempt. A wide street leads from the harbor to the church of Panagia Evangelistica, or the Our Lady of Good Tidings. A lot of believers, in the hope of healing, make the several hundred-meter path to the temple built on top of the hills, crawling on their knees. Numerous shops may be found in the streets which lead from the harbor to the church. There are snack bars, cafes, ice cream shops, boutiques, and souvenir shops. They sell the same things that are sold in Greece, such as paintings and wooden carvings and ornaments made of ceramics and shells. Among the items of food, there are spicy olive oils, sugared fruit, roasted seeds and oriental sweets, canned fruits, and pralines. However, the souvenirs that are sold in the greatest quantities in the shops of Tinos are devotional objects and icons. On the counter, there are corny little things and artful icons, cheap rosaries, and silver-framed paintings, candles, and devotional gifts lined up next to each other. The famous neoclassicist church was built of white marble in the 1830s. Delian marble remains were also used for the building. The square in front of the church is covered by the pavilions or tamatas of candle and devotional object sellers. There's a wide staircase leading to the closed courtyard, which is framed by a decorative arched building from 3 sides. The wonder-working icon is allegedly the work of St. Luke, and it was found in the 10th century crypt by a nun, Sister Pelagia, who was later raised to the altars of the church. Newborn babies are baptized with the trickling water of the spring that's thought to have healing power. The atmosphere of the temple is intimate. Its flower garden is guarded by the statues of the former archbishop. In the small arched wing joined to the building, in addition to some museums, the sacristy and the seminary were given places. An art gallery with an exhibition of local artists is also very interesting. The treasury and the Byzantine Museum, however, are simply impossible to miss. In Greece, where the Greek Orthodox religion is dominant and a domed little chapel stands on every corner, such a beautiful, great, and also architecturally valuable church like the Our Lady of Good Tidings is a rare sight. We should definitely see the baptismal chapel and the touching mausoleum of the Ellie cruiser. The not too spacious interior of the church offers the traditional image of Orthodox churches. Those who long for healing should place a miniature model of the sick body part onto the altar. These little paintings can be bought from the sellers of devotional objects. Mykonos can be proud of its outstanding beaches that are used by locals and the limited number of tourists. This way, they're never crowded. Ios Fokas is a pebbly beach. Livadi and Virocastro are rocky. Porto and Paia Amos are sandy beaches. The most beautifully constructed is Ios Fokas. Kionia is, however, the most interesting, near which the ruins of the ancient Poseidon sanctuary can be found. The most beautiful settlement of the island is Pyrgos. It's a scenic mountain town, the center of the processing of the famous marble mined in the area. The majority of the houses are decorated with marble columns, railings, or reliefs. Even the well and the bus stop at the main square are made of marble. There are several famous sculptors who live here, and they even operate an art school. The decorative church is the work of local artists too. Pyrgos is a very good example of transmitting architectural traditions. Its new houses, with their appearance and style, easily fit the image of the town that was created centuries ago. To this day, ornamental patterns follow Venetian motifs. Some strange buildings can be seen on Mykonos and the neighboring islands too. On Tinos, however, there are thousands of them. These are the so-called pigeon houses. They're two-storied, whitewashed buildings the size of a normal house. This interesting building, decorated with geometrical patterns seen mostly among the northern and eastern mountains, was the invention of Venetian people fond of breeding pigeons. The area of Zamburgo is famous not only for pigeon houses, but also for the former cell of Sister Pelagia, which has been transformed into a memorial place in the nearby monastery of nuns. Even the remains of the hallowed ground are also kept here. The nunnery, however, can be visited only with special permission. Above this stands the castle of the Venetians, named after St. Helen, formerly the citadel of Tinos in earlier centuries too. Looking back from the ruins, we can see not only Tinos, but also the enchanting Aegean Sea and the islands of the Cyclades.